What's up, everybody? Hope you guys are doing well. Make sure this is live. You guys can hear us loud and clear. Type live in the comments. Awesome. Cool. We're good. Guys, today I have Jared with me. Jared joined the Accelerator program a couple of months ago, and he came from the 7-month program, which is where this is being live streamed right now. And Jared, I just wanted to, interview you on how you got to 13,000 in sales, a good amount of profit with that as well. And, what has changed over the last couple of months, since joining the Accelerator program. I'm going to let you talk, and I'll kind of field the questions a little bit. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, well. I got you. Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Chris. So basically, what we can probably talk about first is how it was when I first joined the 7-month program. Basically,
let's actually back up a little bit before
Sure.
that. You were flipping couches before joining that program.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that first. Like, how much were you making doing, flipping couches and stuff?
Flipping couches. On my best months, I was making around around $3,000 after like paying off everything. Like the problem was though, is that I felt like it was a lot of work for the amount of money that I made. So yeah, 3,000 of profit, that's not bad for flipping couches, right? Especially because I'm a student. But the problem was, it's a lot of cleaning of the couches, right? Obviously people don't want dirty couches in their house, right? It's a lot of I partnered myself and I hired a few drivers, right? So that was good in terms of like, the labor, right? But they were taking pretty much half of my profit, so I was only making about like around $100 or less for a couch, which isn't ideal. And just a lot of like, lugging couches into storage units, man, that like it kills your back. It kills your back.
It does.
And because you have people coming in and out of the unit, you know what I mean? And then some of the times, right, I remember the day I wanted to quit couches is when this guy came in. He wanted to look at 6 couches, and I stacked my couches vertically, right, alongside the storage unit wall, so I can fit more couches in there. And he had me take out pretty much every single couch I had in there, and that took about an hour and a half, right? And then at the end of the day, right, I pretty much asked him, I was like, which one did you like the most, right? Which one did you want to buy? And he's like, oh, I was just looking. He was just a major tire kicker. And that was the first time I ever, like, usually I'm a very professional dude, right, when it comes to like my businesses, right? But that time, like, I lost all composure, and I was just like, you know what, bro? It's like, you just please leave. That's pretty much what I did. And yeah, so then after that was kind of the point in my time where I was just like, this is just, I just don't want to do this anymore. Especially since like in my area as well, I live in San Jose, California. Couch flipping, like, pretty much like it became really saturated as well. So I was getting a lot of competition, but I was still making money. But again, it came to the point where I was like, it felt like I was just working a job. I was spending a lot of time at the storage unit because I got to clean them, post them, right? And, of course, I got appointments as well. So that's pretty much the gist of the couch flipping business. Pretty much that, and I was doing that for about a year. So summer of last year to actually summer of this year. And then once I joined the 7-month program, I called my partner. I said, hey, bro, we're like, it's like I can't do this anymore. And he's still successful. He's still doing his own thing. He was because he has a Prius with like a trailer on the back of it, right?
Oh, okay.
So I know it was crazy. I never saw a Prius, right, towing a couch before. But anyways, yeah, so he's still doing fine. We did, like, he and I still talk about it. But yeah, that's pretty much how the flipping for the couches went.
Got it, dude. So that was your breaking point. Then you joined the 7-month program. And can you give your experience on the 7-month program really quickly? I know we had an interview on this one about 3 months ago too.
Right.
But let's do a quick recap of that, because that's where you joined and you blew through that program.
Oh yeah, once I saw your content on YouTube, right? You gave a lot of information off of that, and I try to just emulate just that. But then when you mentioned the $7 a month program, I was like, hey man, it's $7 a month. You know, it's like I don't really got anything to lose. You know what I mean? So worst case scenario is I lose like $7. You know what I mean? That's a cup of coffee, or a tank of gas, right? So yeah, so I joined it, right, and then I looked at your course, and I blew through that course in like less than a week or less than 2 weeks. I think it was around there. You know, and I think I mentioned earlier, like I could have knocked that out within like a few days if I really wanted to, but you know, I was still in school. So I had to put that to the side while I was doing it. But then that's when I like pretty much immediately after that, that's when I started running those Facebook ads using the thumbnails that you provided. And from that, right, everything else pretty much, you know, that's what kind of kickstarted me, right? And then in the first like 2 weeks, I made like around $1,500 in gross profit, just from the course videos, right? And I was like, oh wow, like this is actually working, you know. And then at that time, right, you know, I had a little bit of stroke of beginner's luck, you know, because I got that 1,500 in gross. I think it was more than that actually. I got that off of like $300 of ad spend. So I was like, whoa, you know, I was like this is like, then that's kind of when I got hooked. I was like, all right, I think I'm ready to like full commit to this, you know, because you know, $7 is like, yeah, I was just ready to like do this, you know, as my thing now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then we had our call that you unlocked due to finishing the program, and then you know, and then it's kind of all from there. So now you've been in, you know, the Accelerator program, one of my highest tiered programs, with all of my other students. You know, what can you tell, or like, what's been your biggest takeaway actually from that community and that program?
My biggest takeaway, honestly, it just kind of changed my perspective on mentorships in general. You know what I mean? Because you know, I was like one of those guys who's like, oh, you know, I can learn everything on YouTube. I can do this, I can do that, right? And which that is still true, right? I still believe that, you know, if you know that if you want to, you can learn anything for free on YouTube, right? But you know, it's like the mistakes I've made in the beginning, I definitely was able to learn from other people's mistakes in the mentorship, right? And also I had you and Matt like pretty much like all day throughout the day, you know what I mean? So it changed my perspective on mentorship, basically saying it's like it's okay to spend money, it's okay to spend money to learn how to make more money, pretty much, you know what I mean? I think it's different from like when I say like, when I'm talking about like a course, you know what I mean? I don't believe in paying like $500 for a course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't believe in that, right? But I do believe now in paying for mentorships, people to help guide you, people to help prevent you from making mistakes. And yeah, you know, having other people hold you accountable, right, is a lot different, you know, because when you're by yourself, you know what I mean? It's like, but also it's also the money aspect of it too. You know, if you're paying a lot of money for a program, right? You know, you're not gonna slack off all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Versus when you're by yourself, right? When you're by yourself, you're like, you know, it's like, you know, I'll just do it later.
It's really hard to slack off when you got that messenger group too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they're winning, you just pop in there and you're like, damn, I gotta do some stuff today. Like
exactly. And you know, the thing is, right, is that everyone's kind of like, and you're always wondering like, oh my God, how did you do that? You know what I mean? It's like it just changes your mindset. And I don't think that's something you realize until you're actually in one of these groups. You know what I mean? Because yeah, you know, it's like it's easier to hold yourself accountable when you see other people succeeding as well. And of course, then when you have mentors who like hold you accountable as well, you know, especially in those Tuesdays and Wednesdays meetings, right? Yeah. Where we're going over like progress and stuff like that. But yeah, that's probably my biggest takeaway for sure.
That's awesome, man. So is there anything that you would want to tell somebody who's like on the fence about, you know, joining the program, working with me, working with Matt? Is there any you know, because there's a lot of people like that, right? They're worried, you know, am I going to make my return on my investment? Am I going to, you know, what can you tell those people?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, you know, Chris, I don't know if the offer that you offered them is the same as you offered me, you know, if you the guarantee if you don't make money, are you still offering that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
like if you don't make, you know, your entire investment back, you know, and then if you're not making at least 3K a month by the end of the 6 months, then we work with you for another 6 months. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't really get much better than that. I mean,
Yeah, that's pretty much one of the things that sold me as well, you know. But besides, you know, looking into the program, you know, you gave me a quick sneak peek into the program, which sold me. But you know, if you're on the fence, like let's just put it this way, okay? You have that guarantee, and if you do everything, if you come to the classes, if you rewatch the replays, if you can't, because that's gonna be me in about a couple weeks. I start school again. In less than, well, I start school like this Friday. So you know, I won't be able to show up to all of the workshops and stuff like that, right? But if you come, if you do the work and you watch the replays, right? It's like there's no way you don't make money. You know, you got to like try and like not make money. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. Like unless you're doing something horribly wrong, right? Which the group will help you with, right? Like, listen, I made plenty of mistakes, right? Like I made a lot of like face palming mistakes, you know what I mean? But I've always learned from them, right? But you know, with those two things together, right? Chris's guarantee, and you know, man, they just teach you ways to make money, man. Like they're just ways to make money that you just like, you know, you think it's obvious, right? And you know, I'm not gonna lie, right? Like I remember like going into some of these classes, I'm like, what can this guy really teach me? You know, or what, like, you know, and also the other teacher, Matt, right? It's like, well, what can these guys really teach me that I don't already know? And you'll be very surprised what you will learn here. So if you're on the fence about it, right? Just like, listen, it's not worth making all of those mistakes on your own. Like, why would you spend all that money making all those mistakes? Because ads are expensive, man. Okay, listen, when you're burning through $20-$25 a day on ads, right? Like that gets expensive. You don't want to waste that money. And you know, not only that, phone flipping is just a very expensive niche in general. You know what I mean? Like there's like, you know, for an iPhone 13 Pro Max, you're already going to be around the ballpark of $400 to $700. You know what I mean? And you're not making the biggest margins all the time. You know what I mean? So why would you make all those mistakes, right? And spend all that money when you can just pay money to learn from other people's mistakes, not just Chris's mistakes, but like other people who are actively learning with you. You know what I mean? And I tell this to people all the time whenever I tell them, oh, I joined a mentorship, right? Or something like that. They're like, why did you spend all that money? I was like, why did we spend money on a degree? You know what I mean? Like there's guys out there spending money on a degree, right? That they never use. You know what I mean? And this you actually, like, this is like college, except you spend money and you make money at the same time. You know what I mean? You go to class to learn how to make money. So I don't. So it's like, you know, it's like if you would spend, man, like San Jose State, where I go, is like, it's like $3,900 for a semester, right? For one semester. And I couldn't tell you anything I learned last semester, honestly, right? I'm about to be a senior. You know what I mean? So I don't really remember.
Crazy, dude.
Yeah. So
what's crazy too is like the amount of time that gets like compressed. This is something I talk about quite often when it comes to mentorships. Is mentorships compress the learning curve, right? Instead of going through this entire class for 3, 4, 5 months where you're showing up once a day, we're teaching you everything. Number one, with a curriculum first. And then we're showing you exactly what to do and how to make money that exact same day, right? Like, I know you didn't get the orientation with Matt right away, but at this point, you know, the way that the wheels work in the program now is we get your ads up and running the same day, which I did with you. Or I think, yeah, we got everything kind of, finalized there. And then, Matt came in a few weeks later with you and did an orientation, I believe. And what, on your orientation with Matt, did he find money for you?
Oh yeah, I didn't close the deal right away, because Facebook sometimes they don't always respond. But yeah. I used pretty much like all the classes, right? I could apply it like right away. You know what I mean? Like for example, last week with your ads, right? Like you once you taught me something, right? I was able to implement that right away. And yeah, so it's extremely effective, right? So you learn and you apply like right away, which is what I like about the program. Like even Matt gives us homework. You know what I mean? Matt gives us homework. Matt's like, okay, I want you to find for this deal. And
I need to start giving you guys homework.
You should, because that was like the motivation for me to like go out and find and get the devices that I don't usually get. You know what I mean?
I think I might
Uh,
implement that. I'll start putting together a form that's like a homework form every week. Like, hey, make sure you do this and upload your proof kind of thing.
for
That's what I
sure.
do in Rescale. That's what Rescale is. They have to like prove their work that they actually did it. So I should probably implement that. But yeah, awesome, man. Well, guys, this is Jared. He went from flipping couches to 13,000 in sales, flipping phones and electronics. And I want to point out that he's not only flipping phones. Jared is flipping a lot of things now. And guys, he didn't flip any electronics before joining. I don't think you did, right? You just
No,
flipped couches and stuff.
pretty much.
So you're about a grand total of 4 months into this whole thing, and you're on track to make 50,000 a year by next year easily. Part time. And make a full time income working part time hours. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, and guys, I just want to stress too, like, a lot of people are always like, oh, how much did he make on that 13K? Like, okay, yeah, like of course that's not in profit, right? Like 13K is not in profit, but I'm still making, like, last month I made about $4,000 in gross profit. And that's so, like, it's like, if that, like, that's a pretty decent margin in my book.
And I do want to point out,
running.
Early on in the program, he was overpaying for devices too.
Mhm.
But you brought it on the call. You're like, Chris, the margins aren't there. And I was like, okay, well, let's look in your negotiations. I actually think you booked an office hour with me.
I did.
And we drove through your negotiations and saw what was happening, and we fixed it.
Oh yeah, my margin per phone now is much higher because of that.
Yeah. So the bullet strategy.
Yep, the bullet strategy. In my little, the thing that Kayla, that the what's the word board, right? I have a full category just called bullets. I'm not even joking. That's what I named the category.
Awesome, that's awesome. Well, guys, I'm gonna drop the link in the live stream here real quick for you guys. For if you guys want to apply for the Accelerator program, you can do so using this link I'm about to give you guys. Let me grab it here real quick. It is by application only, or if you finish a 7-a-month program, you'll unlock your call, which then we can talk about it. By the way, I do want to stress that by finishing the 7-a-month program on the call that you unlocked, how was that call? You go ahead and tell everybody about that call. What was it like?
Oh, you're talking about the, oh yeah. I remember that call. That call was like pretty eye-opening. I was like, basically, right, when you're a guy like me, right, you keep, like, you think you know a lot, you think you know more than you really know, right? So yeah, like I said, right, I was like, I came in, I was like, let me see, like, what's up, you know what I mean? Because I was like, because you were like, hey, it's like, we're having the call like right now, and I wasn't doing anything, so I was like, okay, let's do it. So I hopped in, right, and I was like, man, I don't know crap. I don't know crap. Yeah, so that was very eye-opening, and I signed up that day.
Well, I remember the call before that, the booking with me that you unlocked.
Right.
You were like, I don't know, man. I don't know. You were very on the fence, about mentorship still. Yep. And then you joined and then I was like, you know what? You can just sit in on one of our calls. And
yeah, I mean, like, dude, it's like, I totally get it. You know what I mean? It's like why people are like, because I'm the same guy, right? As the people who are on the fence. Like, it's money, and to you right now, it seems like a lot of money. You know what I mean? But once you start making money, right, you realize, like, oh, that's not that much money. You know what I mean? That's like a percent, like, it's like a percentage. You know what I mean? And plus with, like, credit and stuff like that, right? It's like, it's pretty negligible.
Oh yeah, you used PayPal credit to join, yeah. So you didn't actually spend any of your own money.
Nope. So. And I'm just paying it off throughout the 6 months. You know what I mean? And it's not like and honestly, it's like, it's not a huge boo-boo. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just kind of in the background.
Well, guys, that's Jared, couch flipper to 13,000 a month in sales, about 4,000 a month in gross profit this month, and he's going to keep on going too. He's in school. And honestly, I think phone flipping works out better for you in school than couch flipping ever would, huh?
Ooh, yeah. We don't got time to go into that. We don't got time to do that. That was a stressful time.
Well, guys, if you guys want to join the mentorship program, definitely check out the link below. And if you're on YouTube, there's a couple of links below. If you want to try out the 7-a-month program first to just get a little trial run of what it's like to learn from me, do that. And then, you can always upgrade to the mentorship program later. And Jarrett, I appreciate you hopping on, man. And I'm going to see you crush it for the next 3 months in the program.
Yes, sir.
All right. See you later, man.
Bye-bye. Yeah, Chris.